they will not be able to assume that they will end up in Australia.
We will decide who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come.
Put your hand up if you are still wanting to come to Australia.
This really is a lousy deal for our country.
Malaysia has undertaken to treat asylum seekers with dignity and respect.
It's the government's bold plan to stop the boats, shatter the asylum seekers' dreams of a life in Australia by intercepting up to 800 and shipping them back to Malaysia. In return, Australia will do its bit by taking 4,000 proven refugees from Malaysia over 4 years. It's being hailed the Malaysian solution, but it has some very big problems. Problems authorities are desperate to hide.
And psychological.
You go inside, I have to shoot you.
As you're about to see, there's strong reason to believe the boats will still come. Refugees will continue suffering, and the queue will still be jumped. And then maybe after that, maybe... I don't know what we're trying to achieve here. The government's central argument for the Malaysia deal is that it will crush the human traffickers.
Hello?
It was therefore crucial that we meet the people smugglers to see what effect the deal was really having on business. What is the Australian government decision doing to business? Is business slowing down or the same? Same. A myriad of phone calls and curbside meetings led us to this man. Tucked away in a convenience store, he operates a money transfer desk and a payment point for refugees looking for a berth on smugglers' boats out of Malaysia. So once I pay my money here to you, where does it go? Just go into a bank account, or is the agent? Cash. His admission that it was business as usual flies in the face of our government's boasts of crushing the smugglers' operations. But when I pushed for clarification of this man's role as an agent for people trafficking, he backflipped. But this is an agency too.
No. You don't provide any services for
we don't do any service.
Perhaps unwisely, I did tell this man that I was a journalist. It's a mistake I wouldn't make twice.
Sure.
It will be dangerous,
We know about all that.
Everything will be dangerous now.
Numerous sources led us to Harris, who for a price offered to help smuggle a boatload of Burmese refugees to Australia. He adds safe passage through Indonesia is difficult to guarantee.
It is big risk.
Yeah. They said
but
Halfway,
because in Malaysia,
photos show the horror of being captured mid-journey. In spite of the dangers, we discover that demand for smugglers' services in Malaysia remains strong.
Put your hand up if you are still wanting to come to Australia and still prepared to take that risk.
walaupun itu boat, dia cakap.
Not even the prospect of being turned away by Australia will deter the desperate.
Okay, so what they're saying there is in spite of the risks.
They're still willing to try to take the boat and go.
These testimonies contradict our government's claims that the Malaysia solution will stem the arrival of asylum seekers by boat.
They say they're willing to die in the sea rather than suffer here like this. They're willing to take that. They're willing to take that risk.
Our government says that the returned asylum seekers will be forced to join the back of an orderly queue. But as you're about to see, there is nothing orderly in the life of an asylum seeker in Malaysia. It is a life with no rights.
Many people.
Okay.
No document.
Malaysia is not a signatory to the United Nations Refugee Convention. This means that some 93,000 refugees and asylum seekers in this country are officially unrecognised. They live in the shadows. On the run from paramilitary forces called Rela, they have the power to hunt them down and round them up like dogs.
From? Indonesia. From? Bangladesh and Indonesia.
Filmed by Britain's Channel 4 and Australia's SBS, these migrants were arrested for being undocumented workers. Others are picked up for not having visas.
Bayar, sini. Bayar.
But that's the point. Refugees don't have visas. They flee their countries in fear of their lives. Only to arrive in Malaysia, where they are often locked up in places normally reserved for hardened criminals.
Just for a second, forget the term illegal immigrant or boat person. These terms are used to dehumanise refugees. Instead, think of yourself and your wife and your young children. You've just risked your life on a boat to get to Australia, but when you get there, as a part of the Australia-Malaysia solution, you're sent back to Malaysia and you end up here. Now, Australia says you'll be treated with dignity and respect. Advocacy groups and refugees here on the ground say that that will never happen. And the statistics suggest they're right. Between 2005 and 2009, 1,300 refugees died in these detention centres due to the atrocious conditions.
Go back.
Sorry?
Go back.
We visited a number of Malaysia's detention centres in the hope of seeing the conditions for ourselves. But in Malaysia, it's the authorities that ask the questions, not the journos.
You can't go in there and have a look.
Today, Saturday, no take picture.
Malaysia stands to gain $300 million from Australia should the refugee deal go ahead. The human rights of the returned asylum seekers are crucial to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees' support of the deal. Perhaps that's why no one wanted us to see this. This is Dateline accessed Malaysia's detention centres in 2009. And the guards admit the conditions are appalling.
As you can see now, actually they are not comfortable inside here. Not really comfortable. And they are very stressed out.
We received a different story.
Do you treat them well in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still human, right?
Yeah.
So
the food is very out of, I don't know, determined. If the dog see the food, the dog cannot eat. A dog see this food, they cannot eat it.
Would you eat their food?
yes.
Would you?
I will test the food first.
See this? You see this? You see this? You see this?
Like I said, if you go inside, I have to shoot you.
If you doubt the sincerity of that statement, it doesn't take long to meet refugees who have experienced the severity of Malaysian law enforcement firsthand.
They tie with our hand like this, open leg and bend down.
Everywhere we travelled, we met refugees who were caning victims.
The stick was quite big. It was totally pain, and we went
Totally pain.
Yeah, and it was bleeding, and it takes 2 weeks to heal the wound.
A practice recognised by United Nations conventions as torture.
He was asked to stand like this, and both of his hands were tied, and then he was beaten.
Our government says the 800 asylum seekers we sent to Malaysia will be protected.
Check indicate respect for fundamental human rights, and clearly that indicates no caning.
Well, with the best will in the world, I just don't see how that guarantee can mean something on the ground.
This is the 6-year-old girl.
Visiting refugee communities in Malaysia last week, Shadow Minister for Immigration Scott Morrison says it's a fantasy for our government to expect Malaysia to treat the asylum seekers we send them humanely, when all evidence on the ground is to the contrary.
The vulnerabilities are there every day, and the greatest anxiety that mental health workers I've met with here said is fear. It's fear.
That's what Aisha was told by the 2 men who brutally raped her. The men were Malaysian police officers. Aisha had committed no crime. She was on her way to the shops when she was stopped by police and asked for documents. She didn't have any. She is a refugee. She is vulnerable. Her story is a common one for refugees in Malaysia. Some refugees are sold into sexual slavery. Others we met worked 18-hour days at the markets. Their wage, $1 a day. With no money to pay the rent, living conditions are cramped and unhygienic. another family, and more evidence the Malaysia solution won't stop refugees boarding the boats. So you're prepared to take the risk to get on a boat to go to Australia?
You sanggup naik boat, you sudah banyak lalui, banyak problem. Sekarang you berani naik boat,
ya, saya mau
apa jadi pun you
apa
tak
jadi.
Whatever happens, I don't care. I will take the risk. Look at my life.
His life is one of pain. He has the scars to prove it. So you can see why the threat of maybe their boat being turned around, or even the threat of maybe dying at sea, really means nothing to these people. His father was murdered by the Burmese regime. He's got scars all over his body as a result of what happened to him, just because the soldiers wanted to acquire some of his land at his home, and he said no, so they beat him within an inch of his life. He flees to Malaysia. His life here is awful. And now he wants to get on a boat to go to Australia. In Australia, some people call this man and his children queue jumpers. Rafiq is another so-called queue jumper. He takes us out of the city to show us where he will soon depart on a boat to Australia. An innocent little fishing village. I mean, that's the imagery that you get here. But if you know a little bit more about this area, you'd know that this is one of the many staging posts for human trafficking out of Malaysia. Now, Rafiq 1 year ago was arrested and detained as a result of his attempts to get out of here and head to Australia. He's unperturbed. He's back and he's planning another trip. It'll cost between $10,000 and $15,000 for the boat, $1,000 for the agent. These costs will be spread between 7 or 8 families, or about 30 people. He knows about the Malaysia solution. He knows that the boats may be turned back. He doesn't care. He says that his life is so miserable here and it's such an awful existence, he'll risk anything to get on that boat and head to Australia. That Rafiq may never have needed to board a boat if Australia were to substantially increase its intake of refugees from the so-called queue. For all the talk of doing our share, according to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees' 2010 Global Trends report, relative to our wealth, Australia has one of the least generous intakes of refugees in the developed world. Germany, the UK, France, USA, Canada, Sweden, Italy, Switzerland, Austria and Norway all take more refugees than us. Just 2.9% of Australia's migration intake came from boat arrivals in the year 2009 to 2010. Our government is about to spend an extra $300 million in an attempt to stop less than 3% of our migration intake. But if you listen to those the Malaysia solution is aimed at, their message is clear. They need a safe place to live, and the Malaysia solution won't stop them boarding a boat bound for Australia.
It's not thought through, and I suspect the reason the negotiations have taken so long is every time they try and address one problem, another one presents itself, and I can guarantee them that when it comes to implementation, that's just when the problems are going to start.